I wanted to see what you thought about The Rock coming back, man. It looks like we're going to be seeing The Rock main eventing night one of WrestleMania. It'll be Rock and Roman against Cody and Seth. And somehow, some way now, I guess this will be 3 WrestleMania nights in a row where Rock and Roman have been closing the show. Of course, they closed night 2 last year. They're going to close night 1 and I guess night 2. And The Rock is right in the middle of all of it. This probably wasn't the original plan, but anytime The Rock is around, that's got to be good for business, no?
Absolutely. Golly. It's hard to read comments from those that criticize Rock's return and how he returned, et cetera, ad nauseum. But stop and think about that. If you're the booker or a booker, if you're running the show and you get an opportunity to retain the services of the great one, then you don't even think about it.
Right.
It's not a hard, that's a very easy decision to make. So I'm glad that he's back. He seems to be having a good time. He certainly seems to be steering his own ship.
Yes.
And I have no problem with that. As I've said here on the show many times, back in the Mid-South days where Cowboy Bill Watts was the booker, and in the later years of his career, he was still wrestling part-time and the big shows and things of that nature. Shoot a big major angle, followed up, and because we were running towns every night, so there's always somewhere to go work, and it's new and fresh. But Cowboy was just he had a knack for getting inside the head of his top people. In other words, he would get the talents to suggest creative in hopes that they would buy into it and make it their own, take ownership. And when people take ownership of a project, no matter what it is in wrestling or whatever it may be, if you take ownership of a project, you're a hell of a lot more likely to make it successful than not. So Cowboy taught me that early on. He'd bring heels in. I remember him bringing in Angelo Mosca at one point early on, and Mosca had ideas, and Cowboy used them, and it made Mosca happy. It made the match quality better, and it was a good thing. So I think the same situation here applies here. Getting Rock's booking expertise and his instincts on display there's just nothing wrong with it, at least in my opinion. That's all.
I am excited to see what they do in both night 1 and night 2. I wanted to get your take on, I guess there's been a little bit of a discussion online over the last week or so about a quote unquote double standard, maybe because The Rock can be a little more colorful with his language. He's not just staying in the lanes of the PC world, and it's a little more real and a little more authentic and a little more adult. And apparently there's been some reports that some folks in WWE think that that's not fair, that there's a double standard. But I often think about Jimmy Johnson, the former head coach of the Dallas Cowboys, who said something along the lines of production has its privileges. And if you're going to make an exception for anybody, it's got to be The Rock. I mean, who's going to tell The Rock what he can or can't do? Right, Jim?
It's a no-brainer, Conrad.
Yeah.
It's funny that we're even discussing it. I understand why we're discussing it, and I'm glad that we are. But golly, man, it's The Rock.
Right?
Yeah. It's like getting Babe Ruth to be a designated hitter, or my favorite growing up, Mickey Mantle, the great switch hitter from Commerce, Oklahoma, New York Yankee, all that good stuff. So yeah, I don't see I think it's much to do about not enough. But here's the thing. The good news is this whole scenario has got people talking.
Yes.
And they're discussing it, and it's radio fodder and things that people like Busted Open, Dave LaGreca and his group, they've done a good job of providing info on that scenario. I just think it's a win. I think we're going to see that at the box office.
So listen, Jim, we're talking about The Rock, and as we head into 1998, The Rock is in the middle of his biggest push up to this point. He's in his second reign as the Intercontinental Champion. Of course, the first one was as Rocky Maivia, and Well, fans didn't really love that. There were some
Die Rocky Die.
yeah, it was a little rough, man. And now here we are with his second run, but he's a heel. And Steve Austin literally hands him the belt and forfeits the belt to The Rock and then hits him with a stunner. So The Rock is a new heel working with what is quickly becoming our hottest baby face, even if he's not yet the world champion. How did you think Rock was progressing? Because with the benefit of hindsight, man, when it went poorly with him as a baby face up front, this thing could have came off the tracks pretty easily. We've seen that happen dozens, maybe hundreds of times. But The Rock, that was not in the cards for him. He was different. He was a cut above, no?
Oh, I think so. Yeah, nobody was gonna. Nobody ever came near giving up on The Rock. Uh, we never did. I mean, we all knew it. This is a layup. This is easy. Once we just find the right spot for him and surround him with the right people, and I thought we did a good job of that, putting him in the in the Nation of Domination. I don't know how happy he was in the beginning of his Nation of Domination run. It was kind of stereotypical, stereotyped the guy a little bit. This is all we're showing this on YouTube. He's got notices no tattoos with that one Brahma bull.
Right.
That's back in the day. So, but nobody ever he was never in danger of people getting frustrated and giving up on him. He was just you saw what was there. He was the number one draft pick. He was the guy. It's just going to take some time and to learn the nuances. And because he came from a pro wrestling family, the nuances were second nature to Dwayne. He had grown up around them. He was used to the dialogue and within that world. So he kept maturing. I'll say this, Conrad, I was pleasantly surprised every week to see Rock manipulate the backstage area to fit in, to take advice from the older guys and be willing to listen. So I was always impressed with that. I mean, physically, my God, he's 6'5", 270, athletic as hell. But he started picking up all the nuances and putting all those pieces together to make a nice picture, like a puzzle. And so I was obviously a big fan of his since I recruited him and signed him. You know, that story I told about going to this place and down there, his home in South Florida, to recruit him because he wasn't sure what he wanted to do. Hell, he had a college degree. He could do a lot of things. But I didn't know how intent he was on becoming a pro wrestler. Very intent, as we found out. We're at this little place having lunch. It was so significant in my career of 50 years. I remember what I ordered to this very day. Grilled chicken, yellow rice, and black beans. That's exactly what Dwayne ordered. So it's one of those lines. I'll have what he's having.
Yes.
So I love being around him because he was a sponge for information. He probably asked me more questions, especially about his pay, than anybody that I ever managed. He wanted to know. He had a insatiable desire for knowledge, information. And a lot of guys come do their thing physically. They look good. They go to the gym. They get their tans. They douse their hair in water. Blah blah blah, and they call it a day. Not Rock. He just getting started. So he was never. He was a can't miss guy. The only thing that's going to happen is something in his personal life that was unforeseen or injuries. And as far as my role is concerned, you can't control either of those. Injuries happen and all these things. So I love working with him. He was so refreshing, and he was so hungry for knowledge. Stay hungry for knowledge, everybody. Whatever you do for a
Yes.
living or whatever, stay hungry for the knowledge. It's power. I know it's cliche as hell, but it really truly is. Knowledge is power.